So hey guys, welcome back to another video. So in this video we will be talking about object oriented programming, where we'll be discussing just a sec, I think I messed up my screen sharing. Yeah, I will delete it. And yeah, I think it's working fine now. Okay, so today we will be talking about this keyword and function constructor that is used to create objects in JavaScript. So firstly we will be talking about something called as strict mode, and right, so I will write strict mode Node.js. So strict mode can be enabled inside JavaScript using parent quotes and writing use strict. So what does it do? This basically enforces strict mode in JavaScript, which helps to catch common coding errors. Like if you declare a variable without using any keyword, then this will throw an error, right? So if I try to console.log, this will throw an error saying that A is not defined. So that is what is strict mode is, and it's basically used to catch common coding errors, right? So you can see that, so you will be seeing the difference, especially when you are using this keyword. In that scenario, use strict comes into the picture and changes the whole idea of this keyword, using this keyword, right? So this is about strict mode. Now we will be talking about this in non-strict mode. If you run your JS program normally, then it will be considered inside non-strict mode. So what if I try to console log arguments? So basically, whenever in the script is running inside the, so I will write this thing down. Whenever the script is being executed inside Node.js, it wraps the whole script inside an iffy function, something like this function, and it is gonna have some it is gonna have some parameters along with it. Then you can declare its body. Declare the body like this. So if I try to console.log arguments, then it is gonna hit me with something like this. So in the first it is having an empty object. Second is a require function that is used to load modules inside JavaScript, and second one 0 1 2. Third one is an object again, and the fourth one, which is the third index, it is giving me a file name. Basically it's __ file name, and this is the directory name, the last element inside the array. So basically this gives me an iffy function that is being called, and inside this we can access the arguments. So right, so this is the case. But if I try to console.log this, what will be the output? In this case, in the non-strict mode, that will be a global object, and that will be an empty object. So this in non-strict, right? When you try to console.log this inside a function, then that will be a global object. If I call it, right, this is giving me a global object global, and it is having these many functions, right? What if we have another function inside it? Then also it is going to be global object. Test2. And also it is going to be global object, right? So that is what this keyword refers to in a non-strict mode inside Node.js, right? It refers to an empty object when you are writing out in the global scope. When writing inside the function scope, then it is giving me a global object. What if we have an arrow function? In that scenario, let's see the output. Arrow fn. Let's comment out this one. So it is giving me a global object. Why? Because arrow function do not have their own this. They take it from the reference of their parent scope. So parent scope is this test function. So test function is having this as an global object. So that is why this is also giving me a global object, right? Now let's try to see what if we declare inside an object. So let's say we have an object. Console.log this and obj.greet, or maybe let's call this a test function. So since the function is being called via this object, so this will refer to current pointing object. So in other cases there was a global object, but when you try to explicitly call it inside an object, then it is going to refer to this same object. Refers to the same object, right? So what if we have an arrow function? They do not have their own this, so they will take it from the global scope. So that will mean that they will be having a global object reference inside them. So if I call obj.test2, it should give me a global object. Okay, yeah, it should give me undefined, because we are taking reference from the parent is defined inside script scope, inside the file, and at this level, of the object level, this keyword refers to an empty object. So that is why this refers to empty object. What if I try to make a inner function inside this function? So this will refer to the global, not the global, the same object. Why? Because this inner is defined inside this function, and this function is having this as the object itself. So inner, so I will comment out test2 and test. So you see, they are both pointing to same object. So let me check the stream whether it is working or not. Give me a moment. Test. So you see, they are both pointing to same object. So let me check the stream. Okay, it is working fine. Give me a moment. Yeah, so I think we have covered everything related to this keyword inside non-strict mode inside Node.js. So at the top level, it is pointing to an empty object. When you are defining it inside a function, then it is pointing to the global object that is provided by the Node.js. And in case of browser, this will refer to the window, because the global object in case of browser is window. And inside an arrow function, it will refer to its parent, whatever parent environment is having the reference of this, right? So let's see. Okay, let me draw a diagram for this. So this is in Node.js non-strict mode. Top level, global level is having global is having empty object, function is having global object, and object is having object reference. When we are calling via object, when we are calling a function via object, then it is having this as object. In case of arrow function, object arrow function, then it is giving me an empty object. So this is about the non-strict mode. So what happens in the strict mode is, let's see this. I will write use strict, I will comment out this one, I will comment out object.test. So it is giving me empty object. Now in case of test, if you try to console.log inside test, it will give me, so let's not, I think that it is not a good idea to change this file. Let me create another one. This strict mode.js. Use strict console.log. This will be printed and it will give me an empty object, right? Now in case of test, it will give me undefined. Right, so why it is giving me undefined? Because we are not calling test inside an object. There is no current pointing object. So wherever global object is there that was in the non-strict mode. In that case, in the strict mode, it will give me undefined wherever there is global object. So it will give me undefined. But this test2 will also give me undefined. Right, undefined. Now this is interesting. What will be the output in arrow function? This was giving me global object. Arrow function do not have their own this. They will take the reference from its parent scope. Parent scope is this function. This is having undefined, so it should print out undefined. Undefined, right? And in this case, this will print out global object. So now what happens in the case of object when we are defining functions inside object.test, and it will carry the same reference as object, so it should print out refers to the same object. So same object will be printed, whether it is in strict mode or non-strict mode, it doesn't matter, object will be printed. Now this will be called without any object, so in that case it should be undefined. It's an arrow function, so it would take this from its parent scope. Parent scope is object, so it will point to the same object. right? It would point to the same object, and in this case it will take the reference from its parent object. It defined inside global scope. Global scope will give me empty object, so it should print me empty object. It should print out empty object, right? So empty object. So this is about the strict mode, and this is the difference between strict mode and non-strict mode. Wherever there is global object, that will be replaced with undefined, right? So this is the difference in strict and non-strict mode. So I'll copy out this one, paste it over here. Node strict mode, node non-strict mode. Global, and inside function it would give me undefined, and object arrow would give me empty object. Yeah. So let's go inside the browser and see what happens inside the browser. So it will be the same thing, just the global object will be replaced with window, because the global object in case of browser is window. In case of Node.js it is global object name. The name is global object. So this will be your browser. Globally it will give me window. This will be window, this will be object, and this will be window. And inside strict mode, this will be undefined, this will be undefined, this will be undefined. Global will give me window. So let's see it in the browser. About blank, console.log this, it will give us window. Function test, console.log this test, this will give me window again. Let obj equal to test function console.log this const arrow console.log this arrow fn console.log this obj.test obj.arrow fn. This will give me test object and window object. This, okay, I am not calling arrow. So the first this inside the test function will give me the same object, because I am calling it via object.test, and object.arrowFn will give me window, because it will take the reference from its parent. So object is defined inside window, so that is why it is giving us window. Now in case of strict mode, let's see, use strict, and I will use the same code. Okay. Use strict. Yeah, so it is giving me window, but in case of this should give me undefined. Okay, I think I'm having some problem. Okay. browser. This will give me window in browser. So let me run the script. So see, this is printing out window. So let me comment out this one and test. This should give me global object, that is window in the case of browser. So see, it is again giving me window. In this case also, this will give me window. So like this, again it is giving me window. And in case of arrow function, this will give me window again. Why? Because arrow function do not have their own this. They will take it from the reference whatever inside the test scope that is having window, so it will give me window again. Right, now interesting part comes here, and we try to execute object.test, and let me point out this one. So it will point to the same object, right? Same object. And in case of inner function, it will also point to the same object, because inner is defined inside this, and this is having object as its value. Right, now let's talk about object.test2. This would give me window. Right, so this is giving me window. Now what happens inside the strict mode, that we'll be talking about now. Everything is commented out. This will give me window. See, this is giving me undefined. This is giving me undefined, right? Because it is not being called with an object, it is simply called as it is, and we are inside strict mode. So in this case, this substitution will happen and it will give me undefined. This will also give me undefined. Test2. This will also give me undefined. Arrow function should give me undefined, yeah, because it is defined inside test scope. Test is having undefined, as this has undefined. Now object.test should give me, refers to the same object, should give me the same object, right? And inside inner, it should also give me the same object, right? So I'll comment out object.test and open this, and test2 is defined inside object, so it will be undefined window, sorry. Test2 is defined inside object is being declared inside the window scope, so that is why it is giving me window, right? Yeah, so I think that covers this keyword. So inside the browser we have seen inside Node.js, so that is what it is. So we have discussed about the this keyword, right? So I will push this code, this keyword, done. Open folder, constructor function. Now we have seen how do we create an object. We can create an object using object literal, object dot create, object dot assign using shallow copy. So these are the four main ways to declare an object. But what if we try to define more than 10, 20, 30 objects? So that is object literal is going to be cumbersome in that scenario. It is not going to help us. Let's say we want to define something named as RAM. We will do object name RAM, age 22, subjects this, and suppose we want to create another object, let's say Sham. So right, we have to duplicate our code a lot of times. So what we can do is we can use something known as function constructor. So there is no concept of class, but we have something called as function constructor, which is used to create object, right? Now how do we declare an object? Using this, like this. So we can assign like this, and this. And if you want to get the details, we can define a function as well. So RAM can be created using new, which is used to create a constructor of used to create an object. New student Sham this, and if I also log RAM, you will see a student object. I'm not returning it, so that is why it is giving me empty. If I return this, it will give me the complete object. So if I try to console.log Sham, it will give me Sham object with these details that I have passed over. So what's the gotcha here? Can we define the objects like this? It is not a good way. Why? Because if I try to log RAM instance of student, so it should by default it should give me yes, but it is not happening here. In this case it is giving me false. Now why? Because we are creating a new object, that is why it is giving me RAM instance of student as false. It is pointing to the instance of object, a global god level object that is there inside JavaScript. So that is what is happening. So if we want this to be true, then we have to define our object using this keyword. So this is not the right way to define a function constructor. Name, age, subjects. Right. Now it will give me true. All of this is happening because of this substitution. This, when you define a function, this inside a function, it becomes act like it start acting like a class. It is by default when you try to access it using new keyword, it will by default give you the same object reference. So what it does is, this is our call stack. This is our heap memory. So basically this is going to create an, whenever you define something like this dot name, then it is going to create a new object. With properties, name, that is being passed as RAM, age subjects will be an array at, let's say, 6k. So, and we will be having ram here, which will point to this object. Actually what happens is it will do something like this: return this. By default, a function constructor, when you try to invoke it using the new keyword, then it returns this. If you try to invoke it without the new keyword, then it will return undefined. See, this is giving me undefined. When you try to invoke it using the new keyword, that means that you have to create an object out of it and then return that object. So it will give me that object, right? So this is how you define an object via function constructor. So this is a very popular and scalable way to define your objects using function constructor, and we have also seen the memory diagram for this. That is how this is working, right? And if you try to console.log, now there is another problem. So we are creating this function for each and every object. That is not a very good way. Why? Because this function is very common, is a common function that is being just there. It is just using these variables and referring them via this. So you can do something like student has something property name as prototype dot get details function return name, and like this. If you try to log it now, it will not come inside the object. Okay, and the function okay, right. So it will not come inside the object, right? But it will be present inside. It will be present inside student.prototype. Right, so get details function is present inside student.prototype, and you can still access it because of prototypal inheritance. Get details. Console.log ram.get details. See, it is working. So how exactly this is happening is, let me draw the memory diagram for this. Instead I can show it in the browser. So if I console.log dir student, it is giving me a function. Inside it is having prototype where you are getting the get details. This is linked to an object, and it is further linked to object, and ultimately it is getting null. So this is prototypal chaining. So if you try to log the object is also having proto is linked to functions prototype. So this is the functions prototype, student.prototype. So if I write something like ram.__proto, it will be linked to student prototype. Okay, I had to check it, so you need double equal to that. So it is giving me true. Sham is also having the same thing. Sham's proto dot __proto is equal to student.prototype, and sham.__proto ._proto will link to object.prototype, and ._proto will link to null, right? So this is the prototypal inheritance. There is no concept of using classes then creating instances. You just define a function constructor, use the new keyword to declare the object of that class. So and the object is being linked via property. It is linked to functions prototype, and functions prototype is ultimately linked to objects proto, and objects proto is linked to null. So that is what functional programming inheritance is. Prototypal inheritance is. Right, so this is about this keyword and function prototype. In the next video we will be discussing about OOPS concepts such as abstraction, polymorphism, and inheritance. So this will be the topics for these will be the topics for the next video. So see you guys. Thank you. Have a great day.